Adeline Rourke raised her hand at the Deering sale yard and paid $4 for the one cow 40 men had just let walk past. She did not flinch when the rail laughed. In her coat sat a folded bill of sale, and across it, in the auctioneer's own hand, one word scratched deep. Dry. Harlan Crane said it loud enough for all 40 men to hear. "Save your coins, widow, that's $4 poured straight in the dust." Poole's cry was still hanging in the air behind him. Dry, folks. Dry as a bone. She folded the bill. She tied a rope to the cow's halter. And she started walking that animal east. 8 miles, toward a gate not one man at that rail thought to ask about. If you believe old hands know things young eyes can't see, this story is for you. So subscribe, and stay with me to the end. And do me one small thing first. Comment the town you're watching from. I want to see how far this old story travels. Now let me take you back and show you how it started. Adeline Rourke had been a widow 2 winters. She held 160 acres near Deering, Nebraska, a commuted claim, proved up and paid for with years she couldn't get back. She worked it alone now. Her butter had once fed the whole road. Wagons stopped at her gate for it. Folks said no hand in the county turned out a firmer pound. She had learned cattle as a girl in Ohio, on her father's dairy. That knowing was hers, older than her marriage, older than the claim. Samuel had taught her plowing and fence and the price of seed, but he never taught her a cow. That was the one thing she brought whole into the marriage and carried whole out of it. At Poole's general store, the credit book carried her name. 2 lines only: flour and sugar. $11.40 owed, to be settled by the 1st of May. She was not a woman who let a ledger sit open. But the money was tight this year, and the town had begun to notice. That was the quiet thing happening to Adeline Rourke. The county had started to price her by her milk pail. And her milk pail this week was empty. They did not say it to her face. They didn't have to. She saw it in how they looked at the pail on her porch. She saw it in the softness that came into their voices. Pity has a sound, and she had learned to hear it. What none of them saw was this. Adeline read a cow the way other people read a calendar. She could look at an animal and tell you not what it was worth today, but where it stood on the year. And a cow, she knew, is never one thing. She is a circle, turning. The sale came on a bright cold morning. Adeline drove her wagon in and stood at the rail with the rest. She had no plan to buy. She had $4 and a debt to Poole, and no room for foolishness. Then they led Juno through. Juno was a milk cow, red and white, deep in the barrel, a fine straight back on her. 10 months since her last calf. Her milk had stopped. Not from sickness. Not from want. It had stopped on schedule, the way a good cow's milk always stops, right on the calendar, waiting to be started again. Adeline knew it, the moment she saw her. She knew it the way you know your own name. She murmured a date under her breath, just to herself. Then she glanced east, toward the herd place, 8 miles off. "She's just standing at the wrong point on the circle," she said, so soft that not one soul heard it. Poole lifted his voice. He was auctioneer and keeper of the credit book both, a clean ledger man, and he called the animal the way the seller had marked her. "Gone dry," he cried. "This cow's gone dry, folks. Dry as a bone. Who'll start her at $1? Not a hand moved. 40 men stood at that rail, and every one of them heard the word and quit looking. Dry. That was the end of it, to them. A dry cow was a dead loss on 4 legs. Feed going in, nothing coming back. You didn't pay to own a hole you poured grain into. Dry. Poole called again, softer now, almost embarrassed for the seller. Nobody? 4 legs and a hide, folks. Somebody give me $1 for the hide. Adeline raised her hand. $4, she said. The rail turned to look at her. And then the rail laughed. Not cruel, exactly. Worse than cruel. Kind, the laugh of men who thought a poor old woman had just made a poor old woman's mistake. Harlan Crane leaned on the rail, prosperous and easy, the biggest stock buyer in the county. He priced every living thing by whether it worked today. A cow that didn't milk today was worth its beef, and nothing more, and this cow was too lean even for that. He said his line loud, for all 40 of them. "Save your coins, widow. That's $4 poured straight in the dust." Poole hesitated with his hammer up. He looked at her almost gentle. "You sure, Ms. Rourke? She's dry. You understand me? She's give her last." "I heard you the first time, Wit," Adeline said. $4. The hammer came down. Sold to the widow Rourke for the price of a sack of flour. She stepped down into the pen. The pity came over that yard thick as fog. She could feel it on the back of her neck, 40 men watching her fold the bill of sale into her coat, watching her take up a rope. On the paper, in Poole's own hand, the word rode across the middle. Dry. She read it once and put it away against her heart. She tied the rope to Juno's halter. She led the cow out through the gate, past Crane, past the rail, past all of them. Nobody stopped her. Nobody asked her where she was going. To ask would have meant thinking she had a reason, and not one of them thought that. She turned the cow east. And she started to walk. 8 miles is a long way to lead an animal on foot. The road ran flat and brown out toward the river breaks, and the wind came at her the whole way. Juno walked easy behind her, in no distress, chewing at the winter grass along the ruts. A healthy cow. Anyone with eyes could see the animal wasn't sick, but the county didn't see sick or well. It saw the milk pail, and the milk pail was empty. The gate she was walking to belonged to Elias Hurd. Elias Hurd kept the only bull for 8 miles in any direction, a big roan shorthorn, sound and gentle, and Hurd posted a standing service fee for the use of him. $2.50 in cash. Or, if a heifer calf came of it, the calf itself in trade. Adeline reached his gate near dusk with her feet aching in her boots. Hurd came out and looked at the cow a long moment, and then at her. "That's the Deering dry cow," he said. "Not unkind, just true. Word travels." "That's a cow 10 months off her calf," Adeline said, "which is a different thing, Elias, if a man will let it be." Hurd almost smiled. He was a mild man, decent in his dealings, and he had the failing of decent men. He assumed everyone already knew what he knew. He looked at Juno's frame and her eye and how she stood, and he saw what Adeline saw. A cow at the bottom of her circle. Nothing wrong with her a season wouldn't fix. Fees $2.50, he said, or the heifer if one drops. "I haven't got $2.50 today," Adeline said plainly. "I've got my word, and a day of work in these hands. Your east fence is down in 3 places. I saw it walking up. Let me mend it, and take my word for the rest, and I'll settle honest come spring." Hurd studied her. Then he opened the gate. "Your word's good with me, Ms. Rourke," he said. "It always was. Turn her in." She turned Juno in with the roan bull. And the circle, the one nobody at the sale yard would believe in, began to turn. She walked the 8 miles home in the dark. She was tired to the bone and satisfied all the way through, and those two things sat in her easy together, the way they will for a woman who knows a thing the world does not. Then winter closed down on Deering. And here is where it got hard. Because a bred cow gives you nothing. 9 months of it. 9 months of an animal eating hay and giving back not one drop, no milk in the pail, no butter for the road, no coin from the coin, just feed going in and a swelling belly and a date that only Adeline could see. She could not explain that arithmetic to a single soul who would have listened. To feed a dry cow through a winter on faith of a spring was madness by the county's book. Poole watched her credit climb, another line, then another, feed and flour, the 1140 growing, and he said nothing, but he wrote it all down. Nell Ashby's husband set it for the whole road, over the store stove one cold afternoon. "The widow Rourke," he said, "is feeding a dead cow through a live winter. Grief does that to a person. Makes him throw good after bad." Adeline heard about it. She heard about most things. She took the folded bill of sale from her coat and she pinned it to the wall above her almanac, the word "dry" facing out into the room. And in the margin of the almanac, on a page still weeks away, she drew a small circle around a date. She looked at it every morning by lamplight, the way a sailor looks at a star. The gap stretched on, December into January, January into the deep of February, the wind screaming under the eaves and the hay pile going down and down. Every week the county was more certain, and every week the almanac date came a little closer, and only Adeline Rourke knew which of those two things was true. Nell Ashby came by first in the deep of January. She was young, 22, and married a year and trying to make her own quarter section hold. She came for a cup of starter and stayed for the warmth of the stove. And she saw the bill of sale on the wall, the word "dry" facing out into the room, and she asked about it. Adeline did not lecture. She never did. She sat the girl down at the kitchen table and she drew a circle with her finger on the wood. "A cow gives for 10 months, she said. Then she stops. Not because she's sick, because she's on the calendar. Same as the sun comes up, same as the frost. Nell watched the finger go round. She was 10 months off her calf the day I bought her. Milk stopped right on schedule. 40 men saw a dead thing. I saw a clock. And the clock turns? The clock turns, Adeline said, for whoever knows where the bull stands. Nell came back the next week. And the week after. She learned the circle the way you learn anything worth keeping, slow and at a table. And every visit she looked up at the almanac on the wall, at the small circle drawn in the margin, and she saw it had crept a little nearer. That was the strange comfort of that winter. 2 women in a warm kitchen held the whole truth, and out on the road, over the store stove, 40 men held a lie and called it sense. Adeline spent her last store credit in February. On feed. On hay for a cow that gave nothing back. She marked the almanac that same night by lamplight. It was not a scheme. She was not aiming it at Crane, or at Poole, or at Nell Ashby's husband and his talk. She simply chose the season over the week. She fed the circle and she waited for it to turn. Then came a late frost, and the night it all came due. Juno started in the lean to near dawn, in the last hard cold of the year. Adeline hung a lantern from a nail and knelt in the straw. It was a bad one. The calf was turned wrong, and her arms were in it to the elbow, and the cold bit through her coat, and she worked by that one swinging light for the better part of an hour. And while she worked, a wagon stopped on the road. It was Harlan Crane. He'd seen the light. He leaned over the rail of the lean-to, and he looked down at the widow on her knees in the straw and the heaving flank of the cow the whole county called dead. "I'll give you $1, he said. "For both, cow, and whatever that is coming out of her. Before you lose the pair of them, and it costs you the burying." Adeline did not look up. "No," she said. That was all. One word, given up through gritted teeth, her hands full of the thing she'd waited 9 months for. Crane shrugged. He was a man who priced everything by whether it worked that morning. He clucked to his team and rolled on. And then the calf came. It came in a rush and a slick of steam into the cold, a red and white heifer, and Adeline cleared its nose with her fingers and rubbed it hard with a handful of straw. It shook its head. It drew a breath. And on legs it had never used, wet and folding and trying again, it got its feet under it. It stood. The calf stood up in the lantern light, swaying, alive, and the circle Adeline had watched all winter by that circled date on the wall, the circle turned, right there in the straw, where a stock buyer had offered $1 not 5 minutes gone. Within 3 days Juno freshened. The milk came down into the bag, heavy and warm, right on the calendar. exactly as an Ohio dairy girl had known it would 60 years before. Dry was never a wound, it was a date. A cow gives for 10 months and stops on the calendar, and the only thing that starts her again is another calf. Adeline had not bought a dead cow for $4. She'd bought a stopped clock and a spring to wind it. Now the road would learn it too. Spring settle-up came on the 1st of May. Adeline walked into Poole's store with the coin in a twist of cloth. The credit book lay open on the counter, her name and her 2 lines, flour and sugar, $11.40 owed since fall. She set it down. $11.40 counted out in silver. Butterfat money. The creamery route paid 14 cents a pound, and it had come, pound by pound, from a cow the county had called finished. Whit Poole counted it once. Then, he counted it twice. He looked at the number, and he looked at the woman, and he drew a line through her name and closed the book. He did not say a word. There was no word left for him to say that he had not already said wrong. The creamery route man was there that morning, ledger under his arm. He was tallying the whole road's cream, and he read Juno's line aloud without meaning anything by it. "Best butterfat on the route," he said. "Richest worth haul. And that heifer at her heel, she's a second cow standing there, ma'am. Near $20 on the hoof already. A year of beef. Or the down payment on your next quarter section." Harlan Crane was at the rail outside. He heard it. He heard it from a man whose numbers he could not argue with, a man who dealt in pounds and cents same as he did. $4 had bought 2 animals. The milk was only the interest on a cow she had owned all along. Adeline said nothing to Crane. She did not need to. It was Nell who said it. Young Nell Ashby, in front of the same men at the store, said it plain. $4 didn't buy milk, she said. It bought 2 animals. The milk's just the interest on a cow she already owned. And then she turned the knife, though it drew no blood. You called her Dry, Mr. Poole. Every man here heard you. Dry's a date, not a dying. She knew the difference. You said the true word out loud that day, and you never once heard what you said. The store went quiet. Poole stood with his ledger open and added no comment. There was none to add. The pity had become awe. Before the same 40 witnesses who had laughed at the rail, there was one debt left, and it was not on any book. Adeline walked the 8 miles east again, to Elias Hurd's gate. The heifer was hers to give now. The posted fee had said $2.50 in cash, or the heifer calf if one came, and one had come. She offered him the calf. Hurd looked at the little red and white thing, and he waved his hand. Keep her, he said. I posted the terms, and I'll not be the man who takes a second cow off a widow who read the circle better than the whole county. Keep the both of them. Adeline did not argue, but she did not take charity either. She set $2.50 in coin on his gatepost, in silver, where he'd have to knock it off to be rid of it. She thanked him for his bull, and his fencemen bargain kept fair on both sides. And she walked home with 2 cows in her mind and no debt behind her. Crane was at the rail one more time that spring when she brought her cream to town. He watched her a long moment. Then he tipped his hat, and he said not one word, and he rode on. He never did learn to price a season. A man like that only knows the morning. He cannot read a calendar written in an animal's body. And Poole. Poole kept his clean ledger and his good word. He'd said the true word and never heard it. That was his whole failing, start to finish. The epilogue is a spring morning, and it is quiet. 2 cows stand in the lot. 2 pails fill under 2 sets of hands, the milk hissing into the tin. The smell of cut prairie hay is in the air, green and sweet, and the frost is gone for good. Nell Ashby sits on a stool beside Adeline, learning the swing of it, the squeeze and pull, her forehead against a warm red flank. Adeline took the bill of sale down off the wall that morning. She unpinned it from above the almanac. She looked at the words scrawled across it in the auctioneer's own hand, dry, Under it, she wrote one word: fresh. And beside it, the calving date. The date she had circled all winter and watched by lamplight like a sailor watches a star. Then she folded the paper and tucked it into the almanac, saved for next year's circle, because the circle comes round again, and she means to be ready when it does. A dry cow is not a dead cow. Remember that. She is only an animal standing at the wrong point on a circle, and the circle turns, it always turns, for whoever knows where the bull stands. The town pitied the widow. The town was wrong. Old hands know things young eyes cannot see, and a season is longer than a week, and $4 in the right hand buys more than 40 men can count. Comment the town you're watching from. I want to see how far this one travels. There is a particular kind of quiet that lives on a working morning when the work is going right. Not silence. Silence is empty. This is a full quiet, the kind that has weight to it, the way good timber has weight when you pick it up and know before you swing it that the job will go well. The pails were filling. That was the sound, the hiss of warm milk against the tin, the rhythm of it settling into a foam, the shift from sharp ring to soft rush as the level climbed. Juno stood easy. She had always been an easy cow, patient at the stanchion, broad and gentle, the kind of animal that seems to understand the arrangement and accepts her end of it without complaint. The heifer stood just outside the lot gate, watching, not yet old enough for her own stool, but learning the calendar by watching her mother. Nell's hands were getting it. She had come uncertain, back in the deep of winter, half afraid to hope the almanac date meant anything. Now her forehead rested against the warm flank, and her arms moved in the steady pull that you cannot think your way into. You have to feel it. And she was feeling it at last. She paused once and looked up. Adeline, without stopping her own hands, said, 10 months forward from this calf, she'll stand dry again. You'll know it because the milk will shorten, day by day, and then one morning the pail won't fill at all. Don't be frightened by it. Pin the date. Walk to Elias Hurd's gate. The circle takes care of the rest. Nell nodded. She didn't write it down. She didn't need to. Some things go into the hands before they go into the head, and this had gone into both. The almanac sat on the kitchen shelf. Inside it, folded once, the bill of sale. The word dry in the auctioneer's hand, and under it, in Adeline's hand, the word fresh, and a date, and a small circle drawn around it in pencil, the next turn already marked and waiting. She had not done that to triumph over anyone. She had done it because the circle comes again, and she means to be ready. That is all it ever was. Readiness, the rest was arithmetic. The sun was climbing. The prairie lay open and green to the east toward Hurd's fence line, toward the road into Deering, toward all 40 men at that rail who had let a cow pass for $4 and called it wisdom. Let them keep their wisdom. She had the circle.